how to be a better trader using the law of optimal arousal. Very interesting topic. I'm going to reveal why the Goldilocks rule is the best way for traders to enter flow state. And during this episode, I'm going to reveal why traders experience peak performance or flow state when they're working at the edge of their known current abilities. My name is Ash Plaisted, trading mindologist. Welcome to the Trading Psychology and Mindset Show, episode 27. It is August the 3rd, 2022. It is 9 a.m. here in Southeast Australia. I hope you are well wherever you may be in the world. As always, I'll be discussing what is required, everything that is needed to retrain the mind we bring into trading, into the mind we need for trading success. Now, perhaps the best place to start with this episode is to give you a bit of a description of the law of optimal arousal, also known as the Yerkes-Dodson Law, which was created about 100 years ago, the early parts of the 20th century. And it's a model that describes the relationship between stress and task performance. And it proposes that peak level of performance happens with an intermediate level of stress or arousal. Too little or too much arousal results in poorer performance. Now, this has been around a long time and has been applied in a lot of different areas. And there are other factors that affect performance: skill level, personality, confidence, task, complexity, etc. However, this is a very, very important rule because it essentially, for me, is the antidote to one of the greatest challenges of trading. And I'll get to that in a moment. So basically what I'm saying is you need just enough stress to provide motivation and to take you into that peak performance zone, but not so much that stress that you're overwhelmed. Now, it's difficult to exactly pinpoint and does differ from person to person. However, for the purposes of this discussion, we're talking about the curve where too little is you're not activated enough, and too much stress, you're overwhelmed. So in the middle, there is this peak performance zone. Now, how does this apply and why is it so vital to understand with trading? Now, I've alluded to this in the pre-show posts on LinkedIn, and I want to describe it a little bit better here today. Now, with trading, one of the great challenges is how do we reach flow state when we're trading? What is the optimal state of mind to be in when we're in that, furnace, or that moment of taking a trade, managing a trade, making decisions to act upon our rules? Now, many people would subscribe or probably have been falsely trained or educated that, you can put all your emotions to the side and you need to be almost robotic. Now, that is false. Other people, particularly I see a lot of this on YouTube and other places, it's this amped up, super pumped up, super aroused emotional state that they trade from in their day trading. Now, that may work for one person in 1,000, but for virtually everyone else, that is overwhelming, and that triggers too many other negative emotional outcomes and trading outcomes. So with trading, we need to train ourselves on, what is the cue? Where does arousal fit in peak performance trading? And there's another area where arousal is super important. Now, so when you're trading, and I've spoken about this a lot, and you feel those very first flushes of emotional chemistry in your body, your breathing can get more rapid, your heartbeat can get faster, you can feel flushed in the face, muscle tension. All of these things are arousal. This is your body, through your brain, preparing your body for action. either to fight or flight. It's the survival impulse, which is fundamental to human existence. Now, in trading, we don't want to avoid it. This is what I am saying. It is not something to be avoided, not something to be frightened of. It is something to be welcomed, because it is your cue to go into peak performance flow state. Okay, so emotional arousal, recognizing those signs, is a good thing, right? But what happens next is fundamental. So the question is, what can we do as traders to stay in that Goldilocks peak performance zone of just enough, but not too much stress, that we are zoned in, we are focused. It's that perfect partnership between conscious and non-conscious, rational and emotional mind working in harmony together into that flow state where you feel as though the rest of the world ebbs away and you're working right on that edge of that partnership. That is flow state, right? So the question, as I said, is, well, how do we stay there and don't allow that avalanche of emotion to overwhelm and wash us away, which is what happens for most traders. So there's a couple of things. Number one is you must have an intervention tool, right? And breathing is the number one way to intervene in the emotional avalanche. So when you feel those emotions arising, and look, I teach this in my course, and there are plenty of people who teach breathing. Breathing is part of an emotional signature. It is a biological fact that how you breathe is directly connected to your emotional state. So we understand that logic. We can use diaphragmatic breathing or bellows breathing to intervene in that emotional, that emotional arousal, and we can keep ourselves in that peak zone. So as our body is getting flooded with those chemicals, we can use our breath. And look, you can look up diaphragmatic breathing. I teach it as well. It's when we breathe in through the nose and mouth, and instead of breathing into the chest and the upper chest, the upper lobes of the lungs, which is what happens when you're emotionally aroused, that is your body and your brain, I should say, directing your body to move oxygen away from the brain and into the major muscle groups ready for fight, flight. That's why your thinking goes offline. So we intervene with breath. Instead of breathing into the upper lungs, we breathe into the lower lobes, the diaphragm, which is essentially your gut. Right? So you breathe in like bellows. You breathe in from the top down deep into the bottom of your stomach. And then, as with bellows, you press the bellows together and push the air out. Now, if you do that 3, 4, 5 times, that will cut off that emotional avalanche and keep you in that peak performance zone. Now, that is number one. Number two, what do we do from there? This is the other part of which I teach. And for the purposes of this episode, I'm not going to go too deep into mindfulness and how we have created our inner master trader. But essentially what you're able to do when you intervene in the emotional avalanche and you're in that peak performance state is to train yourself, and yes, it's work, it's training, to call forth your inner master trader, those traits that you need to be calm, disciplined, patient, impartial, but all of the while being in a peak performance state, right? So those inner traits, those characteristics that form that impartial, wise trader that we all have within us, that's what can get called up after you've intervened in the emotional avalanche. So that is how we do that. Now, I want to talk about staying focused when you get bored. Staying focused when you get bored. It might sound like a weird statement. Now, the attached statement to that is that motivation is overrated, right? We hear this a lot, and I referenced it earlier about people getting amped up. Trading is alpha. You've got to be in this energized, passionate, amped up state. Well, that is a very, very dangerous and false belief to take into your trading, right? Now, the other side of that, and the problem with any habit. And what you have to do is train yourself with new habits to be, a master trader. Is that, as with forming any new habit, there's a certain point when it becomes boring, right? So we've got to teach ourselves how to stay focused when you get bored. Now, I'm going to make the following statement, and I would highly recommend that you write this down, put it up on your whiteboard, your fridge, and it goes like this. At some point, your success as a trader will come down to how well you handle the boredom of training your mind every day. At some point, despite all the knowledge, all the systems, everything else that's out there, your success as a trader, your ability to go from all of those that just contribute capital to the markets and become one of those small percentage, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% of traders who over months and years extract more capital from the market than they give, that outcome will become totally dependent on how well you handle the boredom of showing up every day and training your mind into the mind that you need for trading success. Okay, this is a key message that I want to impart out of this optimal arousal, right? People talk about getting amped up. You have to really want it. You have to be really passionate. And I think the problem with a lot of traders is that they get depressed or they lose focus and they lose motivation because they think successful traders have some sort of bottomless pit of passion and motivation. But here's the thing. What I've learned over trading myself for a quarter of a century and working with many other traders and other successful traders is this, that successful traders feel the same lack of motivation as everybody else. Here is the key difference, that these people still find a way to show up and do the mind training despite the feelings of boredom. So it's not the absence of the feelings of boredom that separates the winners and the losers in this equation. It's the ability to show up despite the feelings of boredom. Now, where do those feelings of boredom come from? This is the human condition, is that we constantly are distracted and pulled towards new shiny objects. That is human nature. It's not your fault. It's nothing wrong with you. It is human nature. We'll start something new, we'll get a little bit of momentum with it, then it becomes a bit difficult and boring. So our brain starts seeking out something else to take on because what we've started has become boring. This is why we get pulled all over the place, whether it's trading or any other part of life. This is really fundamental to understand with your trading journey and your psychology and mindset work that is required to cross that threshold into that peak performance zone. So that's where arousal is very important. It's part of what I teach, is teaching traders on how to use optimal arousal to stay motivated, right? To build the right habits and set up an environment for themselves in which peak performance trading is likely to happen. So peak performance trading is not the outcome in of itself. The outcome or the desire or the strategy in the process is to build a peak performance environment. One part of which is to utilize your understanding of optimal arousal to stay focused, to stay concentrated, right? Now, here's where I want to finish with this. It's such a big topic, and there's so much more that I could dive in with this. And perhaps, in the comments, I'm happy if you want me to dive deeper into any aspect of why boredom is such a threat to success, please do. So here's my final statement. And I really want to ram this home. The greatest threat to your trading success is not failure. It is not lack of knowledge. It is not the wrong system. It is boredom. right? Boredom kills so many traders without them realizing why, right? So if you can understand that, just take that out of this episode. I would highly, highly recommend you explore this further, whether you reach out to me or you reach out to somebody else. Boredom is something that you need to welcome and have strategies to work through so that you keep doing the work every day to rebuild your mind into the one needed for trading success. Okay? So with that being said, I'd like to draw this episode to a close. If there's any questions, please put them in the chat box, wherever you may be. So what can we do from here? Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Trading Psychology and Mindset Show channel. Find me on YouTube, subscribe, watch this episode again, watch other episodes. That's where I put all of my free stuff, all my content, all my videos there. If you want to watch a more extended, lengthy training masterclass, please go to my website, mindsetfitmethod.com. Just click on the button that says watch masterclass or training masterclass. That goes for 30, 40 minutes. That's really, really helpful, and I'd highly recommend you do that. If you're in a position where you want to take some action and move forward, look, DM me directly on LinkedIn or go to the website and follow the tabs and book in a chat. I'd love to have a chat with you to explain this further, to customize how it can work for you, and we can go from there. So I thank you for joining me. I wish you a mindful and optimal trading week ahead. Have a great day, and I will see you on next week's episode. Bye for now.